In this video, we're exploring how we can brew our coffee on a Sage home espresso machine. Welcome, my name is Patrick Rolfe and this is Coffee with April. This time, we're gonna do something we actually haven't done before yet on this channel, which is kind of excited. We're gonna start taking a deep dive into home espresso brewing, which is arguably perhaps the most complicated way to brew coffee at home. It can be very expensive, you require different gears, and we wanna kind of see what is good on the market right now. What can we find? What are people actually using? So we're hoping to see quite a few videos like this coming up in the future. That's basically us saying a few things about how are we brewing coffee with these machines, more or less, right? And this is a bit of a funny side story of this machine. It actually comes from one of the April team members that's been brewing with this machine at home for 5 years. Not me personally, but we have a bit of experience with it. We've been having it here in the store as well, just playing around with it this morning, and we definitely have some insights we want to share with you. So this is one of the Sage machines. I would argue they're kind of well price points. Kind of an affordable, easy to get machine, kind of easy to use as well. There's a few kind of side notes that we're gonna look into, and then we obviously want to share the espresso that we're using and how we kind of brew coffee with this, which comes down to clean espresso, but also, of course, a bit of milk steaming as well, which is an important factor of it. So one thing we should probably mention is that you have a water filter that you can use. As per always, when you brew coffee, water is very, very important. We do not use this currently because we're using the water filtration system that we have here in the store, which basically doesn't require us to use it. However, we would recommend to probably make your own water or buy bottled water or use the Fightway water espresso blend when you're using it, because the filter, as many kind of basic filters are, just isn't good enough to get that kind of top water. So, use whatever water you're using for brewing filter coffee at home, more or less, and you should be fine. Now, a few other things to keep in mind. So this is actually kind of a profile that runs on a relatively long pre-infusion that goes into what is supposed to be a 9-bar pressure, more or less. So you can choose to program different stuff and volumes. We push it quite simple, where we actually just use the double bottom and turn it off ourselves using a scale when we're brewing. It just makes it a lot more consistent, and it makes it a lot easier as well in terms of getting good results. Apart from that, it has a little cool built-in tamper. We should mention that you can't actually use a standard tamper because the basket size is different, basically the diameter, so you can't actually fit a standard distribution tool or a tamper in here. However, you can brew really tasty espresso anyway, so that's kind of cool. This model here actually has a grinder and a hopper in itself, which a lot of them don't have, and we're going to come back to you doing videos with external grinders with this machine as well to give you a bit of insight. But for this video here, we're actually going to use the grinder that we have. Now, there's some funny kind of side notes which we're going to show you as well in terms of how you're dialing in the grind, which you can do fairly easy step by step. There's a little hack that we're using as well to kind of make sure to have a bit more of a range of a grind size. We find quite continuously when we're brewing using a 17-gram dose that we end up around 4 in terms of grind setting, using our own roasted coffee, which again might be a bit lighter roasted than what you're used to, and roast degree is going to have an impact on the grind size that you require to have, right? You can check our previous videos for that as well. So yeah, we have this now set on 4. We're actually not dosing the hopper with a bunch of coffee. We're doing single doses. It's just less waste, less exposure to oxygen. Some of you will most likely comment, well, the grinder will probably behave differently depending on the amount of coffee in the hopper, which a traditional grinder would, so that makes sense. That being said, if you always do single doses, it shouldn't be an issue because then you can dial in the grind size based on that. So what we're going to do here, we're actually going to brew some coffee. And to make this interesting for us, we're using the same coffee that we brewed over the weekend here in the store, as well as washed, processed, carbonic macerated Pacamara from Los Pirineos. One of my personal favorite espressos coming out of April, and a coffee that we featured in our Legend box this month. So super excited, great coffee. So what we're gonna do is to first clean it up. We're gonna make sure to rinse some water through as well. Clean that up. As you already hear, and you're gonna hear even more when we're using the grinder, it is a bit of a noisy machine. I mean, making coffee is noisy in general, but this seems to be a bit noisier than what it maybe has to be. So grinding, we're basically putting the handle in, starting the grinder, pouring the coffee in. As you can hear as well, again, it's a bit noisy and it is a bit slow. But what's happening and what is kind of cool is that it is quite consistent in terms of the amount of grams it gives you. So we're looking for a 17 gram dose in the basket here. And we're actually dosing 17.5 to get that. And usually we're between 17 and 17.1 coming out, which I would say is fairly okay for any kind of given grinder. So we're cleaning the portafilter, give that a quick tap, and then we're using this tiny little tamper. Here we go. Giving it a quick clean again. We already rinsed it once, so we're not going to do that again. So we're putting in the portafilter, and it basically shows you really clearly where you need to be, and you just push it in all the way. Then we're running the cup, starting the dose at the same time. And that's pretty much perfect. So this is basically what we've been looking for. Keep in mind it is a different system, different basket size, so we're treating this espresso quite differently from what we do in our normal setups. We're pushing this again with a 17 gram dose with 41 grams of liquid, which is a lot lower than what we're used to, at a total extraction time of about 25 seconds. But what it does is that it actually creates a really well-balanced, well-structured espresso, which is actually really tasty. So that's one of the interesting things here, that you actually can make a really tasty espresso at home, right? Now, second part here is the milk steaming phase, right? And there's a few notes to consider here when it comes to milk steaming. One, it's really, really slow. Not saying you can't make really good milk, but it just takes a lot longer. It also requires a bit of kind of tricking the machine itself to make a proper power. So it's not the easiest, and I think for sure the most challenging part of this machine would be the milk steaming aspect, but that's kind of continuous with a lot of home machines. And still looking at the price point here, I would say that's fairly okay, right? And the reality is you can pull pretty good espresso shots. You end up in this more kind of, I'm not going to say traditional as an old school approach to espresso brewing, but it's definitely not necessarily allowing you to be quite as progressive as we are when it comes to brewing here in the store. But it creates a really good cup of coffee, which I think is the important part. So overall, we're kind of happy with this. We're going to continue to play with it, especially via our Patreon account. You're going to see a lot more insight and a few kind of different features when it comes to how we're using the machine. So if you want more of an in-depth experience, that's where you go, and we'll make sure you get a lot more content. With that, we would love to hear from you guys, as in, what kind of machines do you brew with at home? What do you recommend? What do you want to hear us talking about when it comes to brewing espresso at home, which is obviously a bit of a challenging and tricky but exciting part. So with that, please comment below if you have any thoughts on this video. Don't forget to subscribe, and thank you all for watching. We want to give a special thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. It's because of you that we are able to continue to make these videos. And we want you all to feel free to always come with suggestions and ideas on the content that you want to see, because we are doing this for you and because of you. Thank you from all of us here at April.